Hello everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and let's do a review of Pacific Drive, shall we? This is going to be my early review of Pacific Drive. I've been playing this a ton. I almost have 13 hours so far with Pacific Drive on the full release, and I want to talk to you about what grade I would give Pacific Drive if I were scoring it in class and giving it a letter grade, and then also tell you if I recommend the game and think you should buy it and play it. So first, before we get into reviewing the game, it becomes necessary to explain what kind of a game Pacific Drive is. So on Steam, the blurb says, face the supernatural dangers of the Olympic exclusion zone with a car as your only lifeline in this driving survival adventure. Scavenge resources, load up your trusty station wagon, and drive like hell to make it through alive. And the user-defined tags are story-rich, action, survival, sci-fi, adventure. And they should probably put driving in there as well. So, what kind of a game is Pacific Drive? What are you doing? In Pacific Drive, you are driving around a supernatural station wagon in a supernatural exclusion zone, playing an extraction roguelike, basically, is how I would describe it. And roguelike in the sense that there is procedural random generation of areas, and that you can die and lose your stuff, but you can reclaim your body, like in Dark Souls or something, going back to your body to get your things back and such like that. But the randomness, the difficulty is procedural and roguelike. This is not an open world game. This is a click on points of interest and then travel within a confined area because the zone is not safe. You can't just drive anywhere you want. It's mostly a nightmare, and you get trapped in here. But what you get to do, which is, the draw of the game, is drive a car and upgrade a car. You're going to be doing a survival crafting extraction game where your base is basically your car. You're going to upgrade your car. You're going to upgrade all elements of it, from cosmetic to the structural strength of the car, the power of the car, the tires, the storage capacity, the crafting, its functionality, on and on and on. So you go out, you get resources, you see how much you can get, you try to make it back safely, you learn new recipes, you level up in terms of technology upgrades and your car. And this is one of the games where it's like your character itself doesn't really level up. You level up your car, and you can level up some elements of your gear, but not you per se. So, given that that's what you're doing in the game and what kind of a game it is, let's first talk about the fun factor. I always like to begin reviews by talking about, is a game fun? Because that seems of preeminent importance. And Pacific Drive is fun. It is a very cool and fun game where everything is operating at a high level. There's a lot of polish, and doing the stuff is good, which is driving around. And it's cool to find new resources. The game is wonderful to explore and learn the story about. And leveling up the systems of progression are a lot of fun. That being said, there are some caveats with the fun in the game, in the sense that the controls don't always work the way you want when driving, and some of that's by design. There's a little bit of over clunkiness with some of the elements of interacting with your car. Like, for example, if you open up the back hitch of your station wagon, if you're not standing in the right place, you hit yourself in the face with it. And it's like that, the first time it's kind of surprising and a little bit funny, but in reality, you're never going to hit yourself in the face with your own car door when you're opening it. Like, you just know to get out of the way of something like that. Maybe one in a million times you bonk yourself, but it's a weird element that you always have to plan, like, okay, I really need to be careful about opening this. So there's some jank like that. You have to get in and out of your car each time and turn on the engine, shift into gear, turn on or off the headlights and the windshield wipers, open the door, sit down. It's not like, Grand Theft Auto or games where you just jump in the car and you go. There is kind of a ritual to getting in and out. And I get it that that's part of the game, but sometimes it feels a little bit cumbersome and just makes things more tedious, perhaps, than they need to be. And then in terms of the difficulty of the game, sometimes you don't know what's happening. There's all these sci-fi anomalies, and it's cool, but sometimes it feels just way unfair. Like the difficulty spikes, and you just get wrecked. So that can feel bad sometimes. But overall, even with that, like if I get salty or I get upset, I find myself wanting to play this game. I think it is fun. It just has some rough elements. And then after I talk about the fun, let's think about the controls. Okay, so this game is asking you to drive a car, it's asking you to craft and scavenge. How do all of the controls work for doing that? For the most part, things work as expected, but this is an element of the game which driving doesn't feel like it does in other games, and that's a point of, it's intentional, and they want to make it difficult because the game is intended to be difficult, I believe, but sometimes the controls don't do what you want. Now, I'm not talking about when your car gets possessed and is out of your control, but I'm talking about like just weird little things where it's like if you don't put it into park, your car just rolls instantly, and it does it so quickly and a little bit too sensitively. And that's another thing where it's like most of the time when I'm getting out of my car, I put it in park. That it's just like an involuntary reflex. I don't usually have to think about doing that. And so you have to make a concerted effort to do that, or your car is rolling away, and you have to turn it on and off or turn off the headlights and stuff. And these are, again, involuntary actions that I do. And I get it, like you might want to leave your lights on, but the battery drains, so you need to be mindful of that. So it's just kind of like a slight hiccup and disconnect with some of the control. Also, the interact button on the controller is right bumper, which makes sense after a while, but a lot of the time I'm pushing the jump button to interact with things, and I'm confused. But for the most part, I think the controls are pretty good, but this is an area that could perhaps be polished with the game. Now, on top of the controls, something I like to talk about as a subset would be the systems and the UI. How do the systems in this game work, and how does the UI work to help you navigate those systems? So the systems in this game are crafting system, driving system, exploration, upgrade, repair, maintenance, things like that. And for the most part, things work as you would expect, but there are, and again, it could just be by design, there are some systems that are not explained properly in the game that you kind of have to just figure out that feel really important. For example, when I died and I had the setting of keep some items, I was shocked that I kept only my tools and none of the materials that I had gathered. It felt horrible, and I felt even worse because I wanted to be able to go back and get my body or get them from the friendly dumpster or something, and you couldn't, and I was miffed. Then a person in the YouTube comments told me, no, you can go back to your car. And I looked on the map, and sure enough, there was a tombstone. Like, there's your car, you can go back and you could find it and get it. As far as I could tell, the game never told me that. And that is like a huge part. Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I just didn't even know you could do that. And that would have alleviated some of my concern. Now, granted, it was really hard to go back and get it, but that's something. And if you get a weird quirk with your car, the business of diagnosing it, I get it that it's supposed to be trial and error, perhaps, but it was not explained thoroughly and led to a lot of madness until I figured it out. So there's a lot of stuff happening in this game, and it's like you could tell so much love and care went into it. But there's just, at times, a little bit of a barrier to entry, and then a little bit of confusion with how all of this stuff is coming together. So I think, by and large, things work as you would expect, but there are some mysterious design choices and some learning curve elements to be aware of. So the UI, then, though, is great. Like, I don't really have too much of a problem with the UI at all. It is weird to have to turn your head to the right into the passenger seat to see the map. And again, I know that's by design because the ARC device is over there, but it makes for driving and trying to see the map in a really challenging way. And again, I get it that that's by design. It's just not user-friendly to need to be going and you want to see the map, but you can't because you won't look at the road and, stuff like that. So there is that. Now, actually, let me add on to this as I'm thinking about the systems and the fun and the controls. Let me make a big point right here, and I'm going to keep making this point. You should know that you cannot save and exit this game if you're on a run. If you're in the garage, you can save and quit at any time, but if you're out on a run, you can't. This infuriates me. I feel like it's a a design choice that is not respectful of my time, at least in my life, I don't know what's going to happen, and I might need to be able to stop playing. So the fact that I can't close the game on my computer because you can't save and quit confuses me. Like, I don't understand what this would add. Most roguelikes let you save and quit, even if they're permadeath, like a true roguelike. Like, at least you could save and quit. I'm not trying to save scum or anything. I just want to be able to stop playing. And it also goes into a factor where it's like, you're like, well, I only have 30 minutes to play right now before work or something like that. And you can't play Pacific Drive because you're like, that's not enough time unless I want to leave it running the whole day. So that's a big detractor. I really hope that they just fix the fact that you want to be able to save and quit the game at any time. Like, you can pause the game. So when you pause the game, all of the game's variables are frozen. It seems like when you resume that pause, something similar. Again, I don't know how to code, so I mean, maybe what I'm saying is ridiculous, but it seems like you're resuming from a pause state. Like, can't you do that? It might be really hard. Maybe it is coded in an impossible way that you can't do that. I don't know, but I would love that feature. I think you need to add it at some point to ease the accessibility of the game, because not everybody has an hour to sit there. You might, the baby might wake up, or you might need to go to school, or whatever it is. So that needs to be fixed. Now let's talk about the story in the game. For me, the story is one of the most compelling parts of Pacific Drive. The story is awesome. It's really, really interesting. It's well thought out. It's well done and articulated. There's more lore that you can find and read in all of the audio recordings. You can talk to people through your communications devices. You can look up stuff in your built-in log. I think the story is a high point of the game. It's interesting. It keeps me going to find out what's going on next. It's not just some empty drive around roguelike with, just the game itself stands. It's a great game, but then it also has a fascinating story. So then what about the visuals of the game? Let's talk about the graphics and the visuals. Not everyone might like the visual style, but I honestly think it's great. Like, it feels a little bit blocky and cartoony. Sort of like The Long Dark in the sense that it's a realistic supernatural game, but it's cartoony, kind of. I mean, they're different games entirely, but just some of the vibe of how the shading and the textures are done. But when it all works, like when you're playing the game, I think it's a beautiful game. It captures the Pacific Northwest so well, and it's just it looks really good. I like it a lot. I think it's a cool style. What about the audio? This is another thing. The music and the sound effects in this game are strong. The voice acting is great in this game. I think it's really fantastic, and it adds a lot to the game. I think the sound effects are pretty good, and the radio music is hilarious, and it all contributes to a good audio experience. So what about when you put it all together for the style of the game? How would I rate the game's style? For me, this is what makes Pacific Drive worth playing, is how it all works together. It is a unique game experience. It is really cool. You can tell that a lot of hard work, passion, craft went into the production of the game. There's care everywhere you look. It's a little haphazard in articulation sometimes, but I think that this game is very, very stylistic. It's got a cool vibe. It gives you, like, I'm playing kind of, there's this Twin Peaks. I also get some vibes of, like, Alan Wake, and then you feel a little bit of just the supernatural draw of, like, Control, for example, which is, in the Alan Wake universe, but it's got that, like, propaganda of that time period and the safety measures and all of the scientists and, what's going on with them studying this and all that. So I think that it has a good sense of humor, and it's really, really cool. The graphics and the music and the vibe of the game just give it a real sense of soul, and that's what, for me, style is. Does the game feel like it has a soul? Does it feel unique? 100% this game does feel that way, and so full marks on style. So given how I feel about the controls, the fun factor, the graphics, the style, the audio, what would I grade Pacific Drive? How would I grade it? Well, before I reveal my letter grade for Pacific Drive, I always like to give a baseline for the current reviews of the game. And I should say that this is, again, my early review. Maybe, when I beat the game, I might have different thoughts about things, or maybe updates happen to cause me to change my opinion, so I might do another review later. But as of now, for me, and then as of now for the people on Steam, there are 4,100 very positive reviews. And on Metacritic, this game currently has a 78 from 34 critics and a 6.5 from 51 users. So where am I with that? For me, I'm going to give Pacific Drive a B+. I really am pushing this game hard because I just think that the style is through the roof and it's a fun, unique game. There are some uneven, maddening elements to it, and not being able to save and exit is, I could consider an A- for this game, but I'm never going to put it into the A range unless that gets added. That's just me. Even Vampire Survivors infuriates me that I can't save and exit. So the fact that this game, which is a much bigger game, doesn't have that feature is problematic. But I still give this game a B+ because I think that it's a unique experience. It is a really cool and fun experience. I like upgrading the car. I like exploring. And it is difficult and challenging, but feels very rewarding when you make it back to the garage. I want to know what happens in the story. I want to explore, and I want to actually play and progress in the game. So I give Pacific Drive a B+. So I'd love to know what you think of Pacific Drive. What do you think of my review? Do you think it's too high, too low? Do you agree, disagree? Are you thinking about playing the game? Tell me in the comments below how you find Pacific Drive to be and if you agree with my review. So do I recommend that you play Pacific Drive? Well, first thing I like to talk about with this is what kind of a game is it like? And that's a little bit difficult because it's a bit of a unique title. It has elements of, obviously, driving games, but really more like, survival, adventure, crafting games, and extraction games. So there's a feel sort of like maybe, Subnautica, in that you have a timed limit to go through areas and there's obstacles and you have vehicles, but that doesn't really do it justice. It's a game about gathering resources in a dangerous, unpredictable environment. It's a story-rich game. And so if you like games with the supernatural, with story, and that you can gather and craft, then this is going to be the type of game for you. Usually I have some very clear precursors to refer to, but in this case, it's not that easy to do, it doesn't feel like. Given the fact that it's randomized, it's a roguelike, it's a car driving game, it has a whole bit of uniqueness to it. But that actually contributes to maybe why you should play it, because it's not like many of the other games that are out there. So as I move into my recommendation of should you buy and play it, the first thing I like to consider is the difficulty of the game. Is Pacific Drive difficult? And actually, yeah, it is kind of hard. And some of the difficulty seems reasonable, and some of it seems a bit uneven, spiky, and unfair in the sense that you can't know what you don't know. But that's roguelikes a lot of the time anyway. You just die to something that you've never seen before, and then you learn and do it the next time. But the fact that you could get your body back, or your car back, and get your stuff, and you can make alterations to customize the game experience, that does help with the difficulty. So I think it's a challenging game, but it's not like the hardest game that you'll ever play, at least so far what I've experienced. It shouldn't keep you from the game if you like driving games, and you can fix the settings a bit in your favor, or you can grind up and just do low-level extraction nodes to get your car and yourself more powerful before you progress to make the game easier on yourself. And what about the value of the game? Is this good value for the money? Well, the thing about Pacific Drive is that it's actually priced to sell. It's $30 not on sale, and finding a AAA title, they're all $70. This isn't a AAA title, but it's a full game that you can get that I think, has maybe 30 hours in it for the main story and more if you want to do all the side stuff. And that's a good value to me, but it has enough in it to want to pull you along, and I think the value is pretty reasonable considering its lower price point. Now, as far as replayability, I always do want to discuss, is this a game you would want to play again. And I can't tell that right now in my early stage, but I don't really think so. Unless there's some fundamental like daily challenge or infinite mode, or I don't know what you would do, but this isn't a game that I'd really want to go back and play again, at least right now. So it's a great experience. It's a lot of fun, but it doesn't like have a ton of replay, in my opinion, because part of the game is doing, replay, sort of. So what's my overall recommendation? I haven't mentioned this yet in the review, and so this is a good thing to discuss as you have stuck around all the way till the end. One of the things that helped me recommend the game is how customizable it is. You can make the nighttime brighter, which I think you should, for example. You can, make things easier, put quality of life things, make your car start on one click instead of holding it, which I did. You can make it so you lose nothing on death to make the game easier on yourself. All of these things I think are worth doing if you're interested, and I love how many options you get to customize, so that really helps. And I actually think this is a game, if you are open to trying something new and you like extraction, survival, crafting games, this could be the game for you. It's not for everybody. I don't recommend it to everybody, but I think it's a cool enough experience. It's unique. If you like story games, if you like the supernatural, if you like driving, if you like adventure, there is a lot to enjoy about this game. It provides a good challenge. It's a good sense of progression. And if you like repairing cars and such too, then this is your bag. So I don't wholesale endorse this to every single person, but if you're watching the footage, you've heard what I've said, and it appeals to you, then of course, go for it. I mean, it's one of those things where I would recommend people try it if they enjoy games of the survival crafting ilk that are on the more difficult end. Like if you liked Green Hell, even Subnautica can be sort of challenging, I suppose. And these kinds of games, you might be into this. But also, if you just like Alan Wake or story games and you want to play a cool story, I think there's so much going on here that it's worth it. And finally, if you just want to see what's going on at the beginning of 2024 with cool, one-of-a-kind titles, this could be the one that you check out to just see what's going on in gaming and participate in a game that, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't really have many precursors to compare to. Okay, everybody, that's it. That's my review, and that's my recommendation. Please let me know what you think of the Pacific Drive experience and my review in the comments below. I will also provide links to my Let's Play of the game, and I do plan on doing a beginner's guide, which I will put links up for when I have done that, in the description below and in the pinned comment, so you can see more gameplay and learn how to play if you're interested in playing Pacific Drive. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I look forward to reading your comments down below. Take care.